Today, we're pulling back the curtain on a multi-billion-dollar criminal enterprise that could be happening, well, right next door. We're talking about real estate and the secret architecture of money laundering.
The process is actually methodical, it's surprisingly common, and today we're going to break down the criminal's playbook.
All right, first things first, we have to understand the criminal's point of view. Why choose real estate? We're about to see why property isn't just a smart investment for you and me. For criminals, it's the absolute gold standard for making dirty money look clean.
So what makes property just so perfect for this? Well, according to financial intelligence agencies, it really just boils down to 4 key things. First off, you can use huge amounts of cash. Second, and this is a big one, it's incredibly easy to hide who the real owner is. Third, unlike other crazy investments, property is pretty stable and reliable. And finally, you can sink even more dirty cash into it with renovations, which bumps up its legitimate market value. It's really the perfect vehicle.
Okay, so we know why they do it, but how do they actually pull it off? Let's open up the launderer's playbook and take a look at the most common tricks of the trade.
Criminals have gotten really clever at playing both sides of a deal. Let's take undervaluing. Imagine a criminal agrees to buy a $2 million property. On paper, they say they only paid $1 million. Then they secretly give the seller the other $1 million in cash, under the table. Later on, they can sell that property for its real value and boom! They've just created $1 million in perfectly legal-looking profit. Then there's the flip side, overvaluing, where they do the exact opposite and pay more than a property is worth to a seller who's in on the scheme. That extra money is now officially clean.
Another method that's almost shockingly simple is the loan-back scheme. It's just 3 easy steps. Step 1, the criminal gives an associate a pile of dirty money. Step 2, that associate then turns around and gives the criminal a totally formal, documented loan for that exact same amount. And Step 3, the criminal just makes the regular, on-time payments. To any bank, they look like a model citizen paying off a loan, but really, they're just paying themselves back with their own dirty cash.
So you might be wondering, how do you do all of this without your name popping up on a single document? Easy. You use a straw buyer, sometimes called a clean skin. This is just a person with a squeaky clean record who acts as a front. They put their name on all the deeds, and the trail leading back to the real criminal owner just goes cold. Now, for the more sophisticated criminals, the escrow account is their best friend. Why? Well, think of it like a busy train station. There are tons of wire transfers, checks, and payments for all sorts of different deals all rushing through one place. All that normal legal activity provides the perfect cover. A launderer's dirty money just gets lost in the noise, smoothing out the kind of huge financial spike that would normally set off all sorts of alarms.
All this focus on being anonymous, on hiding, it brings us right to our next section, hiding in plain sight. This is all about the corporate tricks criminals use to basically become financial ghosts, completely wiping their names off the records of multi-million-dollar properties.
And honestly, there's no better real-world example of this than the groundbreaking investigation by the New York Times called Towers of Secrecy. They focused their attention on one of the most exclusive addresses in all of Manhattan, the Time Warner Center.
And what they found was, well, it was staggering. In that one luxury building, they found condos owned by over 200 different shell companies. That's not 200 people. That's 200 shadowy corporate entities created for one reason and one reason only, to hide who really owns the place.
And the investigation revealed something even more incredible for the entire United States. Nearly half, 49%, of the most expensive homes are bought using shell companies. Just let that sink in for a second. For every 2 luxury homes that get sold, one of them is bought by a totally anonymous company, with the real owner hidden behind a mountain of paperwork.
So, how is this even possible on such a massive scale? Well, this quote says it all. For the longest time, there have been no legal requirements forcing the U.S. real estate industry to figure out who the beneficial owner, the actual person pulling the strings, really is. It's a massive regulatory blind spot that criminals have been driving a truck through for decades.
Okay, so if the whole system is practically designed for secrecy, how does anybody ever get caught? Let's flip the script here. Now we're going to follow the money trail and see how investigators actually learn to spot these schemes.
So what are those dead giveaways? What makes one transaction look suspicious when there are millions of legitimate deals happening every single year?
Well, investigators are trained to look for a whole pattern of red flags. Big cash payments? That's an obvious one. Buying and selling properties super fast, flipping them? That's another.
But they also look for subtler clues, like using offshore lenders, a mysterious source of funds, or when the only connection a foreign buyer has to the country is the multi-million-dollar mansion they just bought. You see, one flag might just be a coincidence, but when you see several of them together, that's when the alarm bells start ringing.
So, after years of this stuff being exposed, how is the system finally fighting back? Let's take a look at the regulatory response and how they're trying to crack down on these criminals. This timeline really shows a direct cause and effect. In 2015, the New York Times series just blows the lid off the whole problem. The public pressure is huge. And just 1 year later, the U.S. government's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, that's FinCEN, responds directly by issuing what are called geographic targeting orders, or GTOs. These GTOs basically force title companies in major cities to unmask the actual people behind those all-cash purchases made by shell companies. But here's the catch. The challenge is far from over. It is still incredibly difficult to detect this stuff, and for one simple reason. Money launderers often look like the perfect clients. They use their endless supply of cash to make every single mortgage payment right on time. From a bank's perspective, they're the most reliable customers they could ask for.
And you can really see this problem in the data. When financial institutions file those suspicious activity reports for real estate, a whopping 80% are for classic mortgage fraud, like someone lying about their income to get a loan. Only 20% are for suspected money laundering. And that's not because it's happening less. It's because it is so much harder to see when it's done well.